It was a bright and warm Saturday afternoon. The sun was shining gently over the neighborhood, making everything look golden. Mike and Lisa were busy in their backyard, preparing for a small weekend barbecue. Mike was placing the grill in the perfect spot, while Lisa arranged the chairs and set the table with colorful plates and cups. They wanted everything to be just right for their family and friends. The smell of fresh vegetables, marinated chicken, and juicy burgers soon filled the air. Mike carefully flipped the meat on the hot grill, enjoying the sizzle and smoke. Lisa set out bowls of salad, sauces, and fresh bread, making the food table look inviting. Their dog, Bruno, happily ran around the backyard, wagging his tail, excited about the crowd and the smells. By late afternoon, the first guests started arriving. Sarah and Ben, their next-door neighbors, brought a basket of homemade lemonade and cookies. "This smells amazing," Sarah said, smiling as she placed the basket on the table. Ben gave Mike a friendly pat on the shoulder and said, "You really know how to cook. I hope I don't eat too much before dinner." Everyone laughed lightly. Soon, more friends and family arrived. Children ran across the lawn, chasing each other with laughter echoing through the neighborhood. Lisa smiled as she watched the kids play. "I love hearing them laugh. It makes the house feel alive," she said to Mike. Mike nodded, flipping another burger. He loved seeing everyone happy and relaxed. This was exactly the kind of weekend he had imagined. As the grill worked hard, Mike began talking to a few of the adults who had gathered nearby. They shared stories about work, hobbies, and plans for the summer. One neighbor, Tom, mentioned a local sports game that was happening next week. "We should all go watch it together," he suggested. Everyone agreed with excitement. The conversation flowed naturally, and no one noticed the time passing by. Bruno the dog wandered between the guests, accepting pats and snacks from anyone who offered. The children occasionally chased him, but he was fast and always managed to stay ahead. Mike laughed as he watched Bruno dodge the children, running in circles and barking happily. The backyard was filled with life, energy, and joy. Lisa moved around, refilling drinks and making sure everyone was comfortable. She noticed that the sun was beginning to lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the lawn. "We should get the lights ready soon," she told Mike. Mike nodded. He had prepared some string lights for the evening. When they were turned on, the backyard would look cozy and warm, perfect for talking and eating as the day ended. The smell of the grilled food continued to fill the air. Children were calling out for more food, and adults were enjoying their drinks and chatting. Mike and Lisa felt happy seeing their friends relaxed and enjoying themselves. This small gathering, they thought, was exactly what they needed after a long week of work and responsibilities. Suddenly, from the corner of the backyard, Lisa noticed movement near the fence. A woman from the neighborhood, whom they knew as Karen, was walking slowly along the edge of the yard. Karen had a serious look on her face. Lisa whispered to Mike, "Oh, it looks like Karen is watching us again. I hope she's just passing by." Mike nodded but kept flipping the burgers. He did not want to worry the guests unnecessarily. Karen stopped for a moment and looked at the gathering. She seemed upset. Mike decided to stay calm. He remembered previous encounters with Karen, who often complained about small things in the neighborhood. "Let's just ignore her unless she comes inside," Mike said quietly to Lisa. Lisa nodded. They both wanted to avoid any conflict and enjoy their party. Karen, however, did not move away. She paused near the fence and seemed to be making a phone call. Mike tried to stay focused on his guests. He handed a plate of food to a neighbor and smiled, trying to keep the mood light. "Let's not let anything ruin this," he thought. The children continued playing, the adults continued chatting, and the smell of food kept everyone happy. Even though Karen's presence caused a small worry, Mike and Lisa continued with their party. They laughed at small jokes, shared stories, and enjoyed the delicious food they had prepared. The backyard felt alive, full of warmth, friendship, and joy. This was the perfect way to spend a Saturday, surrounded by people they cared about, and a few moments of peace away from the busy world outside. As the afternoon went on, Mike and Lisa felt the party was going wonderfully. The children were laughing, the adults were chatting, and the smell of grilled food continued to fill the backyard. Everyone was having a great time. But Karen's presence at the fence had begun to make Mike slightly uneasy. She hadn't moved, and she was still holding her phone, speaking in a low but firm voice. Lisa noticed Mike's frown and asked, "Do you think she is calling someone about the party?" Mike shrugged but replied, "Maybe. Let's not worry unless she comes closer, we just need to stay calm." They both returned to their guests and continued serving food, hoping that Karen would leave on her own. However, Karen had other plans. After speaking into her phone for several minutes, she suddenly walked toward the backyard gate. She stopped at the edge of the yard and shouted, "You know you are breaking the rules. I'm calling the HOA right now." Her voice was loud enough to be heard by all the neighbors. Mike walked calmly toward the gate. "Hello, Karen. We are just having a small family barbecue. It's not loud and everyone is having fun. Please don't worry about it." Lisa joined him, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "It's a friendly gathering. We would be happy to invite you over if you want," she added kindly. Karen ignored them completely. She lifted her phone again and continued speaking loudly. Some neighbors stopped what they were doing to look at the scene. Mike felt a little tension in the air, but he reminded himself to stay polite. "Let's just continue the party," he said to Lisa. Despite their efforts, Karen did not leave. Instead, she walked along the fence, taking pictures of the barbecue setup and the guests. She pointed her phone toward the grill, the table of food, and even the children playing on the lawn. Lisa felt a surge of worry. Mike, she is taking pictures of everything. What if she complains to the HOA? Mike took a deep breath and said, "We are not doing anything wrong. This is our private property. She is outside the fence. Let's just stay calm and friendly." He returned to the grill, flipping the burgers carefully. Meanwhile, the children noticed Karen's presence and became curious. Some ran closer to the fence to look at her, but Mike quickly called them back. "Stay here, kids. She is not part of our party. Let's keep enjoying our time," he said. Lisa nodded and reminded the adults to continue their conversations. Karen was now speaking louder, repeating words like rules and disturbance. A few neighbors whispered among themselves. Tom, one of the friendly neighbors, approached Mike quietly. "Do you want me to talk to her?" he asked. Mike shook his head. "No, let's just keep calm. She is outside the property. We don't need more trouble," he replied. After a few more minutes, Karen's actions became bolder. She walked closer to the gate and peered inside the backyard. Mike stepped forward gently. "Karen, you cannot enter our backyard without permission. This is private property," he said. Karen paused but did not respond. Instead, she pointed at the guests and said, "This is unacceptable. I'm reporting all of you." Lisa felt tense but tried to stay composed. "We are following the rules. This is a family event. Please understand. You can watch from the fence but don't come inside," she said. Karen gave a short nod, but then continued pacing along the edge of the yard. Some of the neighbors who had been watching whispered to each other. Sarah said, "She always complains, but this seems serious." Ben added, "Yes, but Mike and Lisa are not doing anything wrong. It is their backyard." Everyone returned to their activities, trying not to get involved. Karen, however, seemed determined. She pulled out a small notebook and began writing things down while still pointing her phone toward the party. It became clear she wanted to create evidence of the gathering. Mike watched her calmly. He realized that ignoring her or arguing would not help. The best way was to stay polite, protect the property, and continue enjoying the day. Lisa tried a friendly approach again. "Karen, we have food and drinks. Would you like to join us for a plate?" she asked with a smile. Karen hesitated but shook her head firmly. She continued taking pictures and pacing back and forth. It was clear she had no interest in joining the party. She was focused on complaining. Despite Karen's presence, the party continued. Children laughed, adults joked, and the smell of food kept everyone in good spirits. Mike and Lisa stayed calm, demonstrating that they would not let a single person ruin their happiness. The afternoon passed slowly, but everyone noticed that tension was building. Karen seemed ready to escalate the situation, and Mike felt that he might need help if things got out of control. By late afternoon, it was obvious that Karen was not going to leave on her own. She had made her intentions clear. She wanted to involve the HOA and complain about the barbecue. Mike and Lisa looked at each other and silently agreed that they would need to handle this carefully. The party could not stop, but they also needed to protect their property and guests. Mike thought to himself, "We will stay calm, polite, and safe. Rules are on our side. This is our home, and we are allowed to enjoy it." Lisa nodded, feeling reassured by Mike's confidence. The backyard remained full of laughter. The grill kept working and the party continued, even with Karen standing near the fence, determined to cause trouble. The sun began to lower in the sky, painting the neighborhood with golden light. The party was still in full swing, and the laughter of children blended with the chatter of adults. Mike and Lisa tried to focus on the joy around them, but Karen's presence at the fence was becoming more noticeable. She was pacing slowly, her phone pressed tightly to her ear as she spoke loudly. Mike wiped his hands on a towel and walked toward her, keeping his voice calm. "Karen, I understand you may have concerns, but we are having a private gathering. We are not breaking any rules. Please enjoy the view from the fence, but do not enter the yard." Karen froze for a moment, her eyes narrowing at him. "Rules? This is clearly against the community guidelines. I am reporting this right now," she said, her tone sharp. She waved her phone in the air as if trying to emphasize her point. A few neighbors nearby paused to watch, sensing tension in the air. Lisa stepped forward and tried a gentler approach. "Karen, we have plenty of food and drinks. If you join us, you can see there is nothing wrong. We just want to have a peaceful gathering," she said, smiling. Karen glanced at her, shook her head firmly, and muttered something about following the rules. She had no intention of joining the party. Within moments, Karen's voice became louder. "Yes, I am calling the HOA. There is a disturbance and they need to handle this immediately," she said into her phone. Her words carried across the backyard, reaching the ears of Mike and the guests. Some children stopped playing, and a few adults exchanged uneasy looks. Mike took a deep breath, reminding himself to stay calm. "Everyone, let's continue enjoying ourselves," he said quietly to Lisa. "She is outside the fence. We are not doing anything wrong. There is no reason to worry." Lisa nodded and returned to the table, refilling drinks for the guests. Karen, however, seemed determined to escalate. She began pacing along the fence, occasionally speaking into her phone and sometimes writing notes in a small notebook she had brought. Her movements were deliberate and loud, ensuring everyone could see her actions. She occasionally pointed at the grill, the food, and the children playing as if she wanted to make sure nothing was missed. Mike tried one more approach to keep the situation calm. "Karen, please, I am asking politely. You cannot enter our property. You are welcome to watch from the fence, but please do not cross the line," he said. Karen paused for a moment, her gaze fixed on him, but she ignored his request and continued her phone conversation. Some neighbors who were watching whispered to each other. Sarah said, "She is really serious this time. I have never seen her this focused." Ben replied, "Mike and Lisa are doing nothing wrong. She is just causing unnecessary stress." Despite their concern, no one wanted to get involved directly, hoping the situation would resolve itself peacefully. Meanwhile, Karen's phone call lasted several minutes. She spoke with the HOA representative, explaining the situation in detail and pointing out everything happening in the backyard. "They are breaking the rules. I am concerned for the neighborhood," she said repeatedly. Mike watched calmly, from a distance, making sure the children stayed close and safe. He knew that arguing would only worsen the situation. Lisa whispered to him, "Do you think the HOA will do something immediately?" Mike shook his head. "Probably not right away. They will likely send someone to check, but we need to stay calm and polite. That is our best protection," he replied. Lisa took a deep breath and returned to the guests, helping them enjoy the food and laughter around them. Karen's frustration seemed to grow as she continued her call. She waved her arms at the party, emphasizing every point she made. It was clear to everyone watching that she intended to create a problem, even though no rules were being broken. Some children became curious and tiptoed closer to the fence. Mike quickly called them back. "Stay here with us. She is not part of our party," he said firmly. Despite the tension at the edge of the yard, the party did not stop. Adults continued their conversations, and the children returned to their games, encouraged by Mike and Lisa. Bruno, the family dog, barked happily as he ran around, seemingly unaffected by the growing conflict. Mike and Lisa reminded themselves that staying calm and kind was the best way to handle a situation like this. Karen finally ended her phone call but did not leave. She began pacing again, muttering about rules and disturbances. Mike stepped forward once more, keeping his tone polite but firm. "Karen, I must ask you one more time. You cannot enter this property. This is private property, and you must stay outside the fence." Karen paused and looked directly at him, her face showing irritation and determination. "I am not leaving until this is addressed," she said. Mike and Lisa exchanged worried glances, realizing the situation could escalate further if she did not calm down. They hoped that remaining polite and composed would prevent the conflict from growing. The sun continued to set, casting a warm orange glow over the backyard. The party was still alive with laughter and conversation, but the tension from Karen's presence was noticeable. Mike and Lisa knew that they had to remain patient and careful, protecting their guests and their property, while also avoiding any unnecessary conflict. The backyard was still filled with laughter, but attention had settled like a shadow over the party. The sun was low in the sky, and the golden light made the yard glow warmly. Children ran across the grass, and the smell of grilled food continued to fill the air. Mike and Lisa tried to focus on their guests, but Karen's figure at the fence kept drawing their attention. She was no longer just pacing. Now she was leaning on the gate, her eyes fixed on the party. Mike wiped his hands on a towel and walked toward her, keeping his voice calm. "Karen, please stay on your side of the fence. This is private property and you cannot enter," he said firmly but politely. Karen looked at him for a moment, her eyes narrowing. Then, to everyone's surprise, she stepped through the gate. She did not ask permission. She did not wait for an answer. She simply crossed into the backyard, holding her phone tightly and still muttering about rules and disturbances. Mike froze for a moment. Lisa gasped softly. "Mike, she entered," she said, her voice low but urgent. Mike took a deep breath, trying to control his rising frustration. He knew that yelling would not solve anything. Instead, he took a careful step toward her. "Karen, I have asked politely. You cannot enter our backyard. Please leave immediately," he said. Karen ignored him and started walking slowly toward the food table. "I am just documenting the problem. I am just checking the rules," she said, waving her phone toward the barbecue. The children stopped playing and stared, unsure of what was happening. The adults looked uneasy, realizing the situation had escalated beyond a simple complaint. Lisa stepped forward, trying to maintain a calm voice. "Karen, please, you need to leave. You are not invited, and this is our private property. We want to enjoy the day, but you must respect that," she said. Karen continued to take photos, moving closer to the grill and the table. One of the neighbors, Tom, who had been watching from a safe distance, whispered to Sarah, "This is getting serious. She has crossed the line." Sarah nodded quietly, glancing at the children to make sure they were safe. Mike realized that staying calm was more important than ever. He approached Karen slowly, keeping his hands visible and his voice steady. "Karen, this is private property. You cannot stay here. You must leave now or I will have to call the police to handle trespassing," he said. Karen's face turned red with frustration, but she continued to take notes and photos. "I am protecting the neighborhood. I have every right to be concerned," she said loudly, trying to justify her actions. Some neighbors winced at the volume of her voice, but no one intervened. Lisa quickly gathered the children, leading them closer to the center of the yard. "Stay here, kids, everything will be fine," she said, trying to keep them calm. The adults tried to continue conversations, but the tension was impossible to ignore. Karen was now moving around the yard, pointing at different areas and muttering to herself. Mike decided to keep his composure. "Karen, you are creating a problem. You must leave immediately. This is your last warning," he said firmly. Karen paused for a moment, glancing at him, then back at the food table. It was clear that she was not planning to leave. The guests began whispering among themselves. Some were worried about the children, others about the potential conflict. Lisa whispered to Mike, "What if she refuses to go? What should we do?" Mike took a deep breath. "We stay calm and safe. I will call the police if she does not leave." "That is the only way to handle this without making things worse," he replied quietly. Karen's behavior became more aggressive. She stepped closer to the grill, snapping photos and pointing at the children. Mike stepped in front of her. "Karen, I am asking you one last time. You are trespassing. You must leave now," he said, his voice steady but firm. Karen finally looked directly at him. "I am not leaving until this is addressed. I am reporting everything, and the HOA must take action," she said, her tone full of determination. It was clear that no amount of polite request would convince her to leave on her own. Mike signaled to Lisa and the other adults to stay calm and keep the children safe. He reached for his phone, ready to call the police. "Sometimes, rules are there to protect everyone. We will stay calm, but we will also protect our home," he said to Lisa, trying to reassure her. As the sun continued to set, the backyard remained a mixture of laughter and tension. The party could not stop completely, but the conflict with Karen had reached a turning point. Mike knew that the next few minutes would decide how the situation ended, and he was determined to handle it with patience and care. The backyard was alive with a mix of laughter and tension. Children ran around playing tag, while adults tried to enjoy conversations despite Karen's presence. She had crossed into the yard without permission and continued snapping photos and pointing at different areas. Mike and Lisa kept a close eye on the children, making sure they stayed safe and away from Karen. Mike took a deep breath and stepped toward Karen. "Karen, you must leave. You are trespassing on our property," he said calmly but firmly. Karen waved her phone at him and said, "I am protecting the neighborhood. I will not leave until this is addressed." Lisa felt a surge of worry. She whispered to Mike, "She is not listening. What if she causes more trouble?" Mike nodded. He knew that staying calm was their best option, but he also realized that this situation had gone beyond polite requests. "We may need help. I will call the police if she does not leave," he replied quietly. Mike quickly dialed the local police, explaining the situation carefully. "Hello, officers. A neighbor has entered our private property without permission and refuses to leave. She is causing a disturbance at our backyard barbecue. We need assistance to handle this safely," he said. Within minutes, 2 police cars arrived, their lights flashing softly in the evening sun. The children watched in awe, and the adults felt a sense of relief. Karen's expression changed immediately. She turned to face the officers, pointing at Mike and Lisa. "They are breaking the rules. You need to do something," she exclaimed. The officers stepped out of their cars and approached the scene carefully. They greeted Mike and Lisa first. "We received a call about a trespassing complaint. Can you explain what happened?" one officer asked politely. Mike nodded and described the situation clearly. "This is our private property. We were having a small barbecue. Karen crossed into the yard without permission and refused to leave despite our polite requests," he explained. Lisa added, "We have been trying to stay calm and continue our gathering. She is taking photos and pointing at the children. We are worried about safety." The officer nodded, taking notes. Then the officers turned to Karen. "Ma'am, we need to understand your side of the story," one said. Karen raised her voice. "They are breaking neighborhood rules. This is a disturbance and they must be stopped. I am just protecting the neighborhood," she said, pointing at the backyard. The officers listened patiently, They asked Karen if she had permission to enter the property. She hesitated but said no. The officers explained that entering private property without permission is considered trespassing, regardless of her intentions. Karen argued, saying she was only concerned about rules, but the officers remained calm and professional. One officer stepped closer and said firmly, "Ma'am, you are on private property without consent. You must leave immediately, or we will take action." Karen refused. She crossed her arms and argued loudly, insisting that she was right. The officers exchanged a look and calmly stated, "Since you are refusing to leave, you are now under arrest for trespassing. You will have a chance to explain everything at the station." Karen's face turned red with anger. She tried to argue, but the officers guided her toward the police car. She continued muttering about rules and disturbances, but it was clear that the situation was under control. Mike and Lisa felt a wave of relief wash over them. The tension in the yard lifted immediately. The children returned to their games, and the adults breathed more easily. "Finally, we can enjoy the party again," Lisa said, smiling at Mike. He nodded and returned to the grill, flipping burgers with a sense of calm. The officers thanked Mike and Lisa for staying calm and handling the situation responsibly. They also reminded them to keep their gate secured and to report any future incidents promptly. Mike appreciated their professionalism and smiled. "Thank you. We just wanted to stay safe and keep everyone happy," he said. Even though Karen had caused a major disruption, the party slowly returned to normal. The smell of grilled food filled the air once again, and laughter resumed. Bruno, the family dog, barked happily and ran between the children as if nothing had happened. Mike and Lisa watched their friends and family enjoy the evening, feeling grateful for the peaceful resolution. Sarah, one of the neighbors, whispered to Lisa, "You handled that really well. Staying calm was the best choice." Lisa smiled. "Thank you. It was not easy, but keeping the children safe and staying polite was important," she replied. As the sun set completely, casting a soft orange glow over the backyard, the party continued. Music played softly in the background, and the lights Mike had set up twinkled warmly. The sense of community returned, and the minor chaos caused by Karen became a story to laugh about later. Mike and Lisa realized that sometimes people create unnecessary problems, but handling them with patience, kindness, and rules on your side is the best solution. The barbecue was back to being the joyful gathering they had planned, and the neighborhood felt peaceful once again. After the police took Karen away for trespassing, a calm silence fell over Mike and Lisa's backyard. The tension that had lingered for hours slowly melted away. The children, who had been quiet and uneasy, returned to their games with renewed energy. Bruno, the family dog, barked happily and chased after the kids as if celebrating the end of the conflict. Mike took a deep breath and wiped his hands on a towel. "Well, that is finally over," he said quietly to Lisa. She smiled, relieved. "Yes, it is. I hope she learned that boundaries are important," she replied. Despite the earlier stress, they both knew they had handled the situation responsibly. Their calm and polite approach, combined with calling the authorities when needed, had prevented a bigger problem. The neighbors who had been quietly watching from a distance began returning to the party. Sarah came over with a plate of food. "I am so glad everything is okay. You both stayed calm the entire time," she said. Mike nodded. "Thank you, Sarah. It was not easy, but we just needed to stay polite and protect everyone," he explained. The adults gradually resumed their conversations, sharing laughs and stories about their week. Ben poured lemonade for the children, while Tom set up a small game in the yard. The atmosphere shifted back to a relaxed and joyful one. It was as if the disruption caused by Karen had never happened, and the backyard once again felt like a safe, happy space. Lisa glanced at the children playing and smiled. "I am glad they are safe and happy. That is what matters most," she said. Mike nodded, watching Bruno run in circles around the kids. He realized that even when trouble appeared unexpectedly, keeping calm and following the rules was the best way to handle it. Meanwhile, some of the neighbors began talking quietly about what had happened. They discussed how Karen's behavior had escalated and how the police had handled the situation professionally. Sarah whispered to Lisa, "I hope she learns a lesson. Entering someone's property without permission is serious." Lisa agreed. "Yes, rules are there to protect everyone, not just her," she said. Mike decided to check on the food and make sure the grill was still working properly. He flipped a few burgers and added some vegetables to the skewers. The smell of cooked meat and fresh vegetables once again filled the backyard, inviting everyone to enjoy the meal. Lisa brought out drinks and snacks for the children, who were laughing and playing without worry. As the evening went on, the sky turned shades of pink and purple. The string lights Mike had set up twinkled warmly, adding a cozy atmosphere to the backyard. Music played softly, and the guests slowly returned to their seats to enjoy the food and the company. The party, which had been interrupted by tension, was now back on track. Mike and Lisa sat down for a moment, taking in the calm around them. "I am proud of how we handled that," Mike said quietly. Lisa nodded. "Yes, we stayed calm and respectful. That made all the difference." "The children were safe and the party could continue," she replied. The conversation around the yard gradually shifted to lighter topics. Neighbors shared stories about summer plans, upcoming school events, and hobbies. Children played with Bruno, laughing and shouting happily. The aroma of grilled food, combined with the warm evening breeze, created a perfect ending to what had started as a stressful situation. Although Karen's actions had caused a disruption, the consequences for her were clear. She had been arrested for trespassing, and the police had made it clear that entering private property without permission is not acceptable. The incident served as a reminder that rules exist for a reason, and that patience, calmness, and respect for boundaries are always the best way to handle conflicts. By the time the sun disappeared completely, the party had returned to its full energy. Mike and Lisa felt a sense of relief and accomplishment. Their friends and neighbors continued to enjoy the evening, chatting, eating, and laughing. The minor chaos caused by Karen became just a story to remember, a reminder of how staying calm and following the rules can turn a tense situation into a manageable one. Finally, as the night grew darker and the string lights twinkled against the evening sky, Mike raised a glass. "To good friends, good food, and handling challenges with calm," he said. Everyone cheered and clinked their glasses. The backyard was peaceful again, full of laughter and warmth. Mike and Lisa realized that while unexpected challenges can appear anytime, handling them with patience, calmness, and respect for others ensures that peace and happiness can return. Their backyard barbecue had survived the test, and the neighborhood had witnessed how kindness and rules could win over unnecessary conflict. The evening air was cool and calm, carrying the faint smell of grilled food and fresh grass. After Karen had been taken away by the police, a sense of relief filled Mike and Lisa's backyard. The tension that had hovered over the party all afternoon had vanished, leaving only laughter, chatter, and the happy shouts of children. Mike leaned back in his chair and watched as Bruno, their energetic dog, ran circles around the yard. The children chased him, squealing with delight, while Lisa brought out more snacks and drinks. "I can't believe how quickly things returned to normal," she said quietly to Mike. He smiled. "We stayed calm, polite, and careful. That made all the difference," he replied. The neighbors who had stayed nearby to witness the earlier events began to relax. Sarah and Ben came over, smiling. "It's finally peaceful again. I am glad you handled everything so calmly," Sarah said. Mike nodded. "We just wanted everyone to be safe and happy. That was the most important thing," he replied. Even though Karen's actions had caused a major disruption, Mike and Lisa realized that the situation had taught them valuable lessons. Staying polite, calm, and respectful in difficult situations could prevent unnecessary conflict. They had also learned the importance of protecting their property and ensuring the safety of their family and friends. The party gradually returned to its original joyful rhythm. Adults chatted in small groups, sharing stories about work, hobbies, and upcoming plans. Children played tag and hide and seek, laughing as they ran across the lawn. Bruno happily joined in, barking and wagging, his tail as if celebrating the return of peace. Mike and Lisa took a moment to check that everything was in order. The grill was still hot and the food was fresh. Drinks were plentiful and the table was neatly arranged. The string lights Mike had set up glowed warmly above the yard, creating a cozy atmosphere as the sun set completely. It felt like the perfect ending to what had started as a stressful afternoon. Lisa smiled at Mike. "You know, this barbecue could have been ruined, but instead it turned out even better than I imagined," she said. Mike chuckled. "Yes, it's amazing how quickly things can change when you stay calm and polite. Our friends and family are happy and the children are safe. That is all that matters," he replied. Some of the neighbors began talking quietly about what had happened with Karen. They discussed how serious her actions had been, but also praised Mike and Lisa for handling the situation so responsibly. Tom said, "You two stayed calm and made sure everyone was safe. That is the best way to deal with difficult people." Lisa nodded. "Thank you, Tom. That was our goal. Keeping everyone safe and happy was more important than arguing," she explained. As night fell, the party took on a more relaxed atmosphere. Music played softly in the background, and the glow of the string lights made the backyard feel magical. Guests gathered around the food table, filling their plates and enjoying the warm evening. The earlier tension became a distant memory, replaced by laughter and conversation. Mike decided it was time to give a small speech. He stood near the grill and raised his glass. "I just want to thank everyone for coming today," he said. "Even when we faced an unexpected challenge, everyone stayed calm and kind. That is what makes our neighborhood special." The guests smiled and raised their glasses in agreement. Lisa added, "We learned that staying polite and following the rules is always the best choice. We can enjoy life, even when problems appear, as long as we handle them carefully." The crowd nodded and clinked glasses, celebrating both the barbecue and the lesson learned. The children continued to play and Bruno ran happily among them. Some adults joined the games, laughing and enjoying the cool evening air. The smell of the grilled food remained tempting, and everyone ate happily, savoring the flavors in the company of friends and neighbors. As the night grew darker, the party slowly began to wind down. Guests said their goodbyes, thanking Mike and Lisa for the wonderful evening. "This was one of the best barbecues we have ever had," Ben said. Sarah added, "It was fun, peaceful, and everyone stayed safe. Thank you for handling everything so well." Finally, Mike and Lisa sat together in the quiet of the backyard, reflecting on the day. "It was stressful at first, but everything turned out perfectly," Lisa said, smiling. Mike nodded. "Yes, staying calm, polite, and following the rules made all the difference. We kept our home safe and enjoyed the evening with our friends and family," he replied. Bruno curled up beside them, tired from all the running and excitement. The backyard was peaceful, warm, and full of memories from a day that had started with tension but ended in happiness. Mike and Lisa knew that no matter what challenges might appear in the future, staying calm, kind, and respectful would always lead to the best outcome. The night ended with quiet laughter, satisfied guests, and a sense of accomplishment. Mike and Lisa realized that even when unexpected problems arise, patience, respect, and calm actions can turn any situation around. Their backyard barbecue had survived a major challenge, and in the end, it had been more enjoyable than they could have imagined.